All right, big news for the unemployed. New TWID, arguably the most significant TWID we've gotten in quite a long time. Next developer stream, June 24th. It is going to be no VIDOC. No VIDOC, it is just them sitting down and playing through some of the Edge of Fate. Armor 3.0, new ability stat system, showing off some weapons. There's going to be a new emblem via Twitch drops for 15 minutes. It kind of reminds me of the emblems from the end of Rise of Iron. It was a book that they gave you in preparation for Destiny 2, like your legacy book or whatever. It looks like one of the emblems that you're able to get through there. Right now continues. This was here last week. Essentially, the loot is getting ramped up from June 24th until July 8th, and from the week of July 8th to July 15th, when the new DLC releases, it's going to be ridiculous, quote unquote, Lootapalooza. Now, the big thing that this TWID is trying to cover is melee damage. Currently in Destiny 2, most sources of increased damage are multiplicative to hypothetical 50% damage increases, aka 1.5 and 1.5 increases in damage are multiplied together for a total of 125% or 2.25 damage increase. This approach to damage increases has some problems. For one, the more damage increasing effects applied to time, the more powerful they all suddenly become, which makes the best builds the strategies that can start to revolve around simply having as many buffs as possible. This is a pattern we saw in Destiny 2 prior to the mutually exclusive empowering damage buff system for weapons. Additionally, balancing the game becomes more and more difficult the more sources of increased damage we add. We do not want to have to choose between bosses being one-shot by players who are second main buff as possible, or bosses feeling like bullets punches to players who are not. Now, how melee damage will work. Now, when the Edge of Fate is released on July 15th, melee damage increases will be additive. 50% damage increases will be added together for 100% damage increase total, rather than previously 2.25% damage increase. In this new system, every effect that increases melee damage has been converted to use the new additive damage stacking. Every item that has been changed as part of this has been listed below, with one exception. It'll go into that in a second. The new melee stat introduced to Armor 3.0 increased the damage of melee abilities when going over 100 points up to an extra 30% at a 200 stat. The damage bonus provided by the stat is considered to be an increase to the base of a player's melee attacks, abilities, and is multiplicative without damage increases. In short, if you're putting together a melee build, you want to get your melee stat as high as possible. Sure. Additionally, melee damage no longer scales Scorch and ignition damage generated by melee attacks, which means Consecration is dead. Finally! We think it's healthier for elemental verbs to have a consistent effect, regardless of the source that applied them. Glaives are basically going to synergize with literally everything now. Previously, Glaives did not. Glaive melee is now considered to be an unpowered melee ability, and Glaive melee now triggers all effects that are triggered by a melee ability. These are things like, I don't even have a word for it, the Vampire Warlock gauntlets that give you Devour, the ones that trigger Necrotic. You got all your Titan abilities, Synthos, AC/DC feedback fences, Worm Gods, anything that is a Hunter's Stylus Executioner, and I also think Liar's Handshake. Liar's Handshake should count with an unpowered melee ability. Glaive damage in melee and PvE has been adjusted, and basically it's been reduced because you are now going to be able to actually build craft with melee outside of one very specific hunter exotic, which is really, really bad. Below, check out list of melee changes we made to abilities. Blah 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 blah. They're going to go over everything in a future TWID. Now, I'm not going to go over all the particular numbers. A couple interesting things is Roaring Flames. The maximum bonus from Roaring Flames has been increased from 73% to 200%. Roaring Flames increases solar ability damage, and Glaive melee is always kinetic. They're following those rules for now, so Roaring Flames does not scale Glaive melee damage. So keep in mind, yeah. No changes. I would hope in the future that Glaives inherit the melee damage type of whatever melee that they have. I think that would be really cool. However, they're going to not do that for now. And besides that, Stylus Executioner as well. Melee damage bonus from 200% to 300%. I think you should be able to more reliably set up one-shot melees, set up one-shot melees because you're just tripling your melee damage with this. So yeah, you should be able to more reliably set up one-shot melees because of this. Now, combination below, maximum PvE damage bonus increased from 309 to 400%. We will have combination blow, and combination blow combined with recent health changes and, you know, arc in the sandbox. It wasn't good for miners, but it also wasn't good for majors or yellow bars. Combination blow hasn't been useful in quite a while, but combination blow now works with ascension, and it now works with grapple. Now, I'm gonna go over one of the funniest crash outs that I think the collective community has seen in quite a while. At the site of this, but for Hunter. There's been a couple of exotic armor changes for Hunter. Arthas' Embrace, PvE weighted throwing damage bonus increased. Wire's Handshake, arc melee damage increased, Infinity Spade, blah blah blah, everything. Basically damage increased. Same thing with Train Vice. Train Vices are being made better. Now the numbers look significant, you know, doubling damage from, you know, 100% to 200%, 200% to 400%, 200% to 300%. It's not as crazy as it sounds. We're going to go over some of the numbers later because base damage numbers, you know, after you consider light multipliers and weapon damage multipliers, they are relatively low. Upping the damage from 200% to 300% doesn't result in like an extra million damage in most cases. May only result in like an extra tens of thousands or, you know, 100,000s in some cases. For Titan, Hoyle, Pentagrinds, Synthos, Wishful Ignorance, and Worm Gods are all being affected. Same things with Warlocks for Winter's Guile. All the melee-focused exotics are getting some damage bonuses and tuning. Weapon perks. A couple weapon changes. Close to melee. I don't think I've ever used this perk on glaives, but the damage bonus is getting increased from 30% to 60%, doubling its current effectiveness. 1-2 punch, the melee damage bonus in PvE is increased from 100 to 150. Works with all melee abilities. I don't believe that 1-2 punch worked with Liar's Handshake, the special counter, and I don't think it worked with Consecration. I could very well be wrong about this, but I don't believe it works with Consecration. So the fact that it is working now is huge. It is significant. And exotic weapons are getting changed. Bastion, everybody typically forgets that it did receive a rework not too while ago. It received the Saint's Fist rework, and it basically gets a different version of 1-2 punch. It's like, you know, kind of the same. It's a little bit better, but it's still not good enough to justify using Bastion. Now, Monte Carlo, the Catalyst melee attack no longer deals reduced melee damage to bosses, mini-bosses, and champions. The multiplier on Monte Carlo always felt weird when you were trying to hit the 5-stack. So, you know, you'd set up this, like, big damage spike, and then it wouldn't be worth killing the thing that actually had enough health to justify using that to actually justify using the Monte Carlo melee on it. You know, you'd settle for killing a champion or killing a major, but you know, any ultras or bosses, you just might as well not hit it with Monte Carlo. You dealt pretty much no damage, and you know, I'm just gonna get either one shot by melee or just out of position enough where it's kind of ass. This actually results in a 2.75 times buff to mini boss damage and a 5 times buff to boss damage. Yeah, if you haven't already, buy the Chainsaw Monte Carlo skin because this thing is going to be good for quite a while. Winter Bite received melee damage bonuses from a variety of sources. This does scare me because Winter Bite at times has been the single-handedly the best weapon in the entire game for damage because it receives increased melee damage when it has ammo, and it does heavy ammo glaives. The singular one, it is very, very good. Okay, now for real tuning, besides, you know, just a little bit of damage adjustments, Dragon's Shadow. It has long felt weird how similar Dragon Shadow and Speed Lord Sex are in their effects. Dragon Shadow used to be my favorite exotic. I would just throw on Dragon Shadow because it was just passively very, very good. That's before I started to appreciate all the, before I started to appreciate build crafting in PvP. But Dragon Shadow now does different things. It's a little bit weird. You actually have to use it to get the effect rather than just having a passive effect from Dragon Shadow. But yes, Dragon Shadow and Speed Loaders were very similar in their effects, both centered on dodging to get stats to alleviate some of the weirdness. Dragon Shadow has gained many of these stats and also had his perk updated to better fit with the new suite of player stats. Now, passively increases stability and reload speed. Dodging reloads your equipped weapon, no longer reloads your holster's weapon, and activating your dodge ability grants the following effects for a short time: improved stability, handling, move speed, sprint, slide, ADS, strafe speed, and increased class stat. Dragon Shadow is going to be better with these changes. Getting juiced when you dodged. It's going to be good for aggressive players. It's going to be good for defensive players. It's going to be good for everything. I think it's going to be a little bit better using dodges to engage into fights rather than it is going to be using dodge to retreat from fights. If you wanted to retreat exotic, you can always just use Wormhusk Crown. But now it's more. It is a little bit more focused, the Dragon Shadow, to be an offensive exotic rather than a play any way you want exotic, just get passive stats. And speed loaders, they changed it. Adjusted type fix. Dodging reloads all weapons and grants increased handling stability for you and nearby allies. When the buff is active, additional dodges increase the strength of the buff and refresh the timer, and also dealing sustained damage grants class ability energy. Making Dragon Shadow the solo exotic for Crucible, and speed loaders be the support exotic. There was some tech that we tried to do for Day 1 Salvation's Edge with speed loaders, but I wasn't able to pull it off too much on the Witness, and even when I was, the timings, the actual timings of using speed loaders didn't really matter. So we'll just have to see how strong the increased handling is, specifically the reload speed is, and if it does mess up any damage rotations. Now, Mask of Bakris, I have always thought it was fun, but I always thought it was fun on one single weapon. That weapon being Horror's Least. I thought the Horror's Least with Mask of Bakris is like the best use of it. I think I've made like 2 or 3 videos on it since it has been released. But anyway, my biggest complaint of it has been always that you had to use a stasis subclass. I thought it was going to get better being able to use this when Prismatic was launched. But not really. Not really. You really would want, on paper, access to some of the tools that the Arc subclass provided. That being Ascension and Tempest Strike. Now, Mask of Bakris effects are now active when either an Arc or Stasis Super is equipped. Now, it no longer provides a non-stacking surge bonus damage, just grants a flat 10% damage for bonus weapons, because that's what worked before. It just gave you your surges, the same surges that you would have if you were to pick up an Orbolite or something. That's why it was good in Crucible, but it wasn't good in any other activity, because it wasn't a unique damage bonus. It was I believe it's a player damage bonus, because it came from the mod because the surges come from the mods on your boots. Now, 10% plus damage for eligible weapons, that being Stasis, Arc, and Lord of Wolves. Now, when I read this at first, I was very surprised. I actually didn't believe when I was told that Lord of Wolves was affected by this, but allegedly, this has always been a Fallen Captain fantasy. Now, I could have missed it. I must have missed the memo when this was a exotic related to Fallen Captains. But if they want to give Lord of Wolves an extra 10% damage for free, just for free, as a synergy with like an exotic specific synergy, Mask of Bakris and Lord of Wolves, I don't believe there's any other synergy like that besides Sturm and Drang. But hey, whatever. Stacks up to 3 times while active. Weapon find uploads grants bonus ability energy. So I would like to see how long the timer is, but this is huge because before you would get your 10 seconds of surges, and the shortest your cooldown could ever be with Mask of Bacchus was 10 seconds. So one of the downsides of this before was that unless you died, you would have to wait 20 seconds to use your next dodge at the lowest tier of mobility. That was always bad. The bonus damage was never worth it unless you were doing a funky strategy. Being able to stack the bonus three times, 10% up to 30% bonus damage, if it is additive, since it is additive on Stasis, Arc, and Horde Wolves. And also, Weapon Finder blows grant class ability energy. I would like to see how much. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be something like 10% for red bars, like 30% for Guardians in the Crucible and other majors, and then closer to like 100% for champions or whatever. So this could be real. This could be very, very good on some heavy weapons. Maybe Winterbite actually. Just because Winterbite doesn't contain its own bonus damage. So this could be good. This could be really good with Winterbite actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think I'm gonna make a video. I'm gonna make a video about that when these changes go live. Anyway, Capri Sting. It's always been niche. Removed automatic smoke bomb activation when using melee attack. It was the most annoying part of the exotic. It forced you to use your smoke bomb. Removed true sight when dealing damage with the smoke bomb, and added killing weakened targets creates a burst of weakening smoke and returns smoke bomb energy. Much like on the Prowl is now, except you get smoke bomb energy back. Capri Sting and On the Prowl, I think, are going to be incredibly strong in PvP together. Now that killing weakened targets grants a burst of weakening smoke and returns smoke bomb energy, because you're more able to consistently get more melees. Both keepers increase maximum damage bonus 150 to 200%. Now provides more damage. Now provides more of the total damage bonus earlier in the overdraw. If you're using Oath Keepers in Crucible, I'm sorry. If you're using Oath Keepers in PvE, I am also sorry. Oath Keepers have never been worth the time investment. Period. Blight Ranger. I'm not gonna pretend like I had unique thoughts about this. I paid no attention to these until I actually reviewed the numbers. Now, fixed an issue again. Another bug fix. This thing has been broken. They've tried fixing it, I think, like 8 times. They adjusted the voltaic mirror meter behavior. Now requires 1/4 less reflections to meet the max. Fills more evenly, and blocked melee attacks now count as a reflection. Quality of life improvements. And now they increase the damage. So they raised the ceiling and raised the floor, and always applies blind before dealing damage. And also they updated the visuals, audios, and timing to better show the impact of the exotic. I'm gonna open up a Reddit post. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna do that right now. Anyway, this is the Reddit post. I'm gonna link this. I'm gonna link this Reddit post in the description. But essentially, what this is saying is the damage bonuses it's doing being buffed to 450 at base and 862.5 at its absolute maximum. That is just to say the base damage before multipliers, before light, before enemy scaling, before activity modifiers. This sounds like a big buff. However, this person chooses Graviton Lance, Necrochasm, Wishender, and Malfeasance as to all being just better. It basically does nothing in PvE and is only meant as a troll exotic in Crucible. As a troll exotic in Crucible, basically. A singular Vex Mythic class linear deals 443 damage to the body and 1,417 to the head, easily eclipsing the damage that Blight Ranger is going to be providing at maximum. A singular acquire of 180 shot, 1 bullet, 442 damage now. That's only 32 damage less, and you don't have to waste your super and an exotic armor piece to get it. 1 Necrochasm. 1 Necrochasm Cursed Thought Explosion, 581 arc damage, 1 Quicksilver Storm Grenade, 1,201 damage. Basically, TLDR, they've spent so long trying to develop Blight Ranger into something usable. It has to be someone's fetish or someone's little pet project within the studio that they need to make Blight Ranger work, when you just got to abandon it. Just leave it alone for a year and just come back to it like once other things have been looked at. This guy, for example, Wormas, Shinobu's, Arthurus, Gemini Jester, Gwizin's Lucky Raspberry. I would say Gear fucking Hoiberg. I think it could use some tuning. But yeah, I'm sorry, boss. Stop burning up patch notes on this piece of garbage. Drop that and update. For Titans, the Titans are being reworked. They added additional effects to the crest because the crest basically doesn't do a lot of things. It's a support exotic that fails in its ability to do support. Sustained damage while behind a barricade triggers another small healer burst, and healing your allies grants barricade energy. Titans, unlike Warlocks, don't have healing grenades. Or at least don't have an easier way to throw a lot of healing grenades out. I wonder if this would work with support frame auto rifles. I think that would be cool. That would be cool, Crest Applepe, if it works with the support frame auto rifles. Maybe. We'll see. Phoenix Cradle. Updated the VFX on sunspots, so it's more easily recognizable. Yeah, it's the sunspots for Phoenix Cradle look like any other sunspots right now, so them being unique will actually encourage people to walk through them instead of being afraid that they're going to take damage, and also dealing sustained solar weapon damage in the sunspot extends its duration, and providing solar buffs to allies. There's a chance to create a sunspot at your feet. I hate effects that say I would like specific trigger conditions instead of probability trigger conditions. It's just a pet peeve of mine because it's near impossible to quantify without actually having access to like data mined material. Mark 44 stand asides, spurting with Juggernaut periodically grants static charge. Mark 44s have been garbage basically since they made taking damage remove your entire barricade. They were too good before, and then they weren't good enough after, because you just lose your barricade if you use Mark 44s. And also sprinting will amplify crits in areas behind you that grants your ally speed booster. I think this is cool. Like, hey buddies, follow me. This is a fantasy exotic. It doesn't do a lot anymore. Path of Burning Steps, Roaring Flame, the bonus you get from the Path of Burning Steps, grants you 10, 15, and then 20% bonus solar weapon damage, and a 5, 10, and 15% bonus ignition damage, and it stacks with Surge mods. It also reduces the duration of suspend, slow, and freeze effects applied to you. I think it always reduces the effects of freezes and slows, or at least to reduce your chances of getting... I'm just spreading misinformation here, but I'm pretty sure this had an interaction with the stasis freeze before, but now it reduces the duration of suspend as well. Abyssal Leap, increased duration of suspend applied by enhanced triggers, lashes. As they say, small nudge in efficacy. Actium War Rig. Now for Titans, I am very, very interested in this one, specifically because you may remember, I don't remember what the name is, but there was a artifact mod introduced in Season of the Echoes, or Season Echo, the first season of the year, Choir of One. It was introduced this season, or that episode, whatever you want to call it, and essentially, it gave you free autoloader, gave you free damage, gave you free stability, ammo gen. It was just as an artifact mod. And I said at the time, damn, this is just better Actium War Rig, but it worked on all the classes. Well, now Actium War Rig is inheriting those effects. So I still have a lot of old footage of using Choir of One. So I would like to see, especially, I haven't used it since the new changes to destabilizing rounds. So I would like to see how good this is going to be. But, another Titan main I know has said that you are maybe wasting a exotic slot just so you can use auto rifles a little bit better. I tend to think that Choir 1 is so ridiculously strong that it is worth using Actium War Rig when Choir 1 is in the game, and especially when this artifact mod here is back. Now it's on Actium War Rig. And Spirit of Alpha Lupi is inheriting some of the effects. Healing your allies grants additional class ability energy. I hope this works with support frame autos. I mean, it doesn't say that it doesn't, but knowing Bungie, it probably isn't going to work correctly at launch. Moving on to Warlock. Starfire Protocol, my beloved. Welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Starfire Protocol activates on radiant damage, and they're increasing the energy gain from fusion grenades from 2.5% to 5%, and they're reducing the fusion energy grenade gain from final blows from 20 to 15%. So they're bringing it more in line to what it used to be. If you remember, there was a meta not too, maybe 2 years ago, where you just had 6 warlocks sitting in a well, just throwing fusion grenades at a boss. They'd get their grenades back instantly, and you could just melt any boss in the game. Pretty cool. I thought it was stupid because I hated playing warlock, but it got nerfed into the ground. And also Starfire Protocol is one of the coolest ornaments in the entire game, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Wings of Sacred Dawn! Wings of Sacred Dawn is a relic. It is a relic of a bygone era. But they're reworking it now. Combatants are less accurate towards you while Tomb of Dawn is active. PvE change, similar to the Manticore's Catalyst. While a Solar Super is equipped, Solar Open Final Blows, not great restoration, and reload your stowed weapons. Good changes, but is this going to make Wings of Sacred Dawn good? Maybe. It's literally an exotic that is an artifact mod, pretty much. But you don't have to expend a grenade to trigger the artifact mod. Maybe getting the free restoration when you're midair will be fine, but the combatants being less accurate towards you. Destiny's enemies are disgustingly accurate in high-end activities, so... And we don't use Manticore midair for this reason, just because you die so quickly. So we'll see. Felminter's Helm adds a powered melee damage, weakens targets instead of executing enemies. Applies 50% weaken, and weaken effects applied by the burst via melee or finisher are unchanged. So just powered melee damage, period, instead of final blows or executions. Awesome. Awesome, 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 awesome. Felminter's Helm is one of the better weakens. It's one of the strongest weakens if you hit him with the burst via melee or the finisher. But just having an additional 15% bonus damage, you start off the fight with the 50% weaken, and then you execute the thing you're fighting to get 30% or 40%, whatever it is, extra damage to everything else. I think this is a good change. Prometheum Spurs. Reworked the perk Embers of Light when a Solar Super is equipped. Weapon defeats grant class ability energy, and weapon defeats in a rift grant different solar verb depending on the rift. As well, in Healing Rift, weapon defeats grant a pulse that grants radiant to your nearby allies, and when in the Powering Rift, weapon defeats instead grant cure. So it's inversing. When you heal, you get more damage, and when you damage, you get more heal. Good change. Good change. Only with the Solar Super equipped, though. Only with the Solar Super equipped. So Prismatic Touch of Flame plus Rifts, plus I would assume Healing Rift is going to be really good. Or rather an Empowering Rift is going to be really good, because you already get the Radiant and the bonus damage from Touch of Flame. Boots of the Assembler. There is a lot of changes here. Basically, what this is all trying to say is the orbs spawned by the Assembler are going to more reliably and more strategically target your allies. They're going to actually hit them, and they're going to grant class ability energy, like with the Noble Seekers on impact. They're going to detonate if they make a direct impact with an ally that they're not targeting. So multiple people can't get the effects of this, even if the Boots of Assembler are healing somebody that it's not intentionally trying to heal, and there would be a 40-meter range on the tracking. Now, a 40-meter radius. I know it only sounds like 20 extra meter radius, but the actual percent difference in the circle between the 40-meter radius and the 20-meter radius is huge. 40 meters is a massive space and will cover essentially the entirety of most of the arenas, or most of the boss arenas. If you put them in, if you put the turrets, the rifts in a good place. Geomags are getting nerfed. Geomags were very good this season, reducing super energy gain by ionic traces from 4% to 4% from 7%, and returned sprinting to top off bolt charge. This is a good nerf, but it was Geomags have been very strong. Besides that, yeah, Final Shape Bungee rewards: acquire of 1, your pins, your statues, your jackets, whatever. I bought this shirt. Actually, I'm just waiting for it to come in. Some bugs here. Ascension isn't working with certain armor mods. They don't say which ones. Tab 6 and 9 of Drowning Labyrinth aren't able to be completed once again. This bug is directly impacting me. I cannot complete my Drowning Labyrinth quest. I cannot focus, despite having the catalyst done for the exotic in the Sunder Doctrine dungeon. I actually can't focus gear to be able to target farm. And yeah, artist of the week. Kind of reminds me of Season of the Undying, the first season released, I believe, or with Shadowkeep, if that was the name. I like this. I think this is cool. And this was I watched this early. This was just a triple kill with the No Land Beyond sliding. It was a cool clip. Good shot. Congratulations on Movie of the Week. That's it. Juicer. Probably one of the more significant TWIDs we've had in quite a long time. This is going to be, Jesus, 30 minutes. I skipped like half of it. Skipped pretty much the entire beginning just to go over armor changes, but armor changes. All right. Yeah, that's it. Bye.